for those of you unfamiliar with CLT, we're a nonprofit 501c3 that serves primarily low-income households in across Monroe, Vernon, and Crawford counties. And I'm here today to kind of talk about some of our more recent housing development as well as the Cooley Community Land Trust. So in 2008, CLT established the Cooley Community Land Trust, which you all just learned about from Kelly, which ensures that household or housing has permanent affordability attached to it. The program was started back in 2008 with a mix of some private 0% financing that we received. We received some grants for startup costs and consulting costs, and we also used AmeriCorps Vista volunteers at the time to help with some of our capacity building activities. And our first home was sold in 2009. Since that time, we have put 24 homes into the trust. We have had 3 resales since the first home was sold in 2009, and our very first house has been resold. We have 1 land trust home here in Hillsborough, and then we are partnering with Habitat to do a few more throughout their development project that they're working on in town now. Our initial development was done, so I talked about kind of some of the initial startup funding. The initial development costs, as well as some of that affordability subsidy that was discussed, was done with NSP funds, home funds, as well as CHODO funds that we had received at that time. Another project that we completed within the last several years was a workforce housing project in Prairie du Chien. This was done in partnership with the City of Prairie du Chien as well as the Prairie du Chien Redevelopment Authority. After conversations with the city and CLT, we wanted to increase the density of the project. It wasn't a ton of density increase that we were able to get, but it was a little bit, and every little bit kind of helps. So initially there was 4 lots that the Redevelopment Authority was looking at selling. They subdivided them into 5. 4 of the lots were donated to CLT, and we did 4 0-lot line twin homes in that development. They were 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom with an attached garage as well as an unfinished basement. This was done in partnership with funding from the DOA. We also did some private fundraising in the community as well as through foundations and local businesses. The City of Prairie du Chien provided a 0% construction loan to us to help reduce some of our borrowing costs, and then the lots were donated to us in addition to water and sewer laterals installed at no cost to us. That construction loan was really kind of critical to help reduce our costs in order to make this project cash flow. All of our projects have significant contributions from the municipalities that they are developed in. It really kind of helps us fill the gaps of the project and make it work. Then when the homes were completed, they were sold by CLT to low-income households through our first-time homebuyer program. Folks received down payment assistance to help make those mortgages affordable. They were sold for their appraised values. And then we had a variety of different funding sources that we used for down payment assistance. As part of that program, we also provide homebuyer education to make sure that households are ready to take the next step with homeownership. And that includes some one-on-one education on financial wellness and housing counseling. And the workforce housing project in Prairie du Chien was really kind of a catalyst for our next project. The Prairie Eco Cottages, a few weeks ago, we just celebrated our grand opening for that project. This was CLT's first LIHTC development. It was done in partnership with the Girard Corporation, the City of Prairie du Chien, WIDA, DOA, SENER, Federal Home Loan Bank of Chicago, Renew Wisconsin Solar for Good, Focus on Energy, and then Paramark as our property manager. So again, there's a lot of partners involved in these projects as well. So they were cottage-style apartments, 24 units, all affordable to families, disabled residents, and seniors. All utilities are included in the property, so we're paying heat, electric, as well as internet. The solar is providing the long-term sustainability for CLT as the eventual owner of the property, but also for the tenants who live there, because ultimately their rent increases should be significantly smaller than what they might normally expect because our utility costs will be kept low. So another benefit is that individuals only have to make 1 housing payment. They make 1 payment that includes everything. Rents range from $478 for a 30% CMI 1-bedroom unit to $1,090 for a 3-bedroom unit for an 80% county median income family. There's also a community room as well as a leasing office on site, and folks have access to use that community room. And then the next project that we are working on, this one is in the city of La Crosse. It's called Haven on Main. This is in partnership with the Girard Corporation as well as a group called Haven for Special People. And this was kind of, this project started with so we call Haven for Special People the parent organization. It's a group of individuals, parents, community members who either know adults with disabilities or have supported adults with disabilities, and they wanted to look for a better housing option for these people in their lives. And so out of this, Haven on Main was born, and Haven on Main is going to be another live tech development that CLT is working on, and it's going to serve adults with disabilities. And it will allow them to live independently in a thriving community, in their own apartment, but also have accessibility accommodations that they need and be able to live in a downtown community. They also will have the ability to access additional supports such as in-home care, medical care, and things like that that they need. 50% of the units in the building are going to be reserved for this special population. So there's going to be 70 units total. 1, 2, and 3-bedroom units. There will be affordable as well as market rate units. 59 of the units will be affordable at 30 to 60% CMI, and then 11 units at market rate. And then this was really a community-informed development. So we did numerous neighborhood meetings, just trying to get input from the neighborhood, specifically on some of the architecture and design of the project. We also work very closely with Haven for Special People, which is that parent group that I referenced earlier. They eventually have started their own nonprofit. They've really helped guide a lot of the decisions that we have had to make to help us best serve some of the disabled residents of the project. They have also helped, or when the project is completed, they will also facilitate community building events and activities within the building. So they want all residents to feel like they're a part of the community. This has been modeled after a program called Home of Our Own in New Glarus. And they do a lot of events, like they'll cook meals for folks, they'll have bingo, all kinds of variety of different activities and things that they put on. The parent organization, Haven for Special People, has also been critical in helping us do some of our fundraising activities for the project. There will also be community services available on the ground level, and so that community services facility will be available for use. And then when the project is completed, CLT will be moving some of their offices in La Crosse to the first floor of this building. There's a part of it that will be for commercial use as well. Another great feature of this building is that it will also have a lot of solar. So again, one payment including heat, electric, and internet. Making it sustainable for the tenants as well as for CLT as the eventual owner of this development. One thing that we've partnered with Girard Corporation on the last 2 developments, and you can tell that they have a commitment and a passion and a focus on the long-term sustainability. They really put in a lot of energy efficiency measures and wherever possible so that we can continue to afford this and that tenants will pay the lowest cost possible. And then after the tax credit affordability period is up, we would also like to add this property into the CLT Community Land Trust. It will help ensure permanent affordability for it, particularly with some of the other nonprofit partners and things that we have. And then the final program I have is we have recently launched a pilot program, a bridge housing program to support homeless families. This was done in partnership with La Crosse County with some of their ARPA funding, as well as CLT and PET charities. So we had been finding that a lot of households had barriers to housing that were increasing rates of homelessness, including evictions, poor rental history, felonies, and other kind of criminal background things. So we partnered to design this program to help reduce and eliminate some of those barriers that people are facing in rental housing. So for example, folks may have income or may have a housing voucher and the ability to pay rent, but some of these other things are prohibiting them from getting into the rental market. And so La Crosse County is referring folks to this program. There's no applications, no credit check, no background checks. The human services case managers make the referrals to the program, and then Cooley Cap manages the property, and it allows individuals to establish up to 2 years of rental history so that they can then move on into the open market. We purchased single family homes as well as a duplex throughout this project. And then this project was a catalyst for us to apply for some additional funding through the city of La Crosse. And we're doing that program built off the same model, but it will be for single individuals. And that's all I have. Any quick questions or?
Superintendent speaking about this issue next. Partly because I feel that I'm lucky that I have a school board that's encouraging me to do this sort of work and getting engaged in housing and childcare and other economic development issues. But it's also because the school district can only operate if we have more kids. And that as more and more school districts face declining enrollment, it's in part because we have families that want to be in our school districts, but they can't find affordable places to live within the school districts. I also need to recruit and attract employees to do the work of teaching and leading our schools. And if I don't have places that they can afford to live, we have to commute to work in the school district, and I don't want that to happen either. But I think this is especially important in rural communities. And just for perspective, so there are 421 school districts in the state of Wisconsin. 300 of those 421 have fewer than 1,000 students. And so most of Wisconsin's school districts are small rural districts where the school district is likely the largest employer in town. It's a large part of the identity of the place. And so I think that the superintendent in the school district should be involved, especially in smaller communities and rural districts, to make sure that the community continues to advance in these ways. Our district has about 2,800 students. This is Sauk Prairie from above. Sauk Prairie is a made-up place of Sauk City and Prairie Stack on the east side of the Driftless Region. So one of the battles that we face, and this is the topic that I was given, was how do you build community support for housing in, to confront the NIMBYism? How do you get the community to buy in to investing in housing and expanding and changing the housing stock? The village president of one of our two main municipalities came out opposed to any new housing. He wanted the community to stay the same forever. And that's basically how he spoke about housing. And we had to change the community's conversation about housing, that our workforce shrinks if our housing stock stays the same. And as a school district, our student population shrinks if our housing stock stays the same. Because people are staying in their homes longer, they're having fewer kids, and so it's impossible for Sauk Prairie to be the same place 10 years from now if we don't have more places to bring more families in. Now, that was his perspective. A lot of us also wanted more people, and we wanted, there's an idea churn that happens when you have members of the community, but pushing on that belief that Sauk Prairie will change too fast if we add more housing, we had to make the argument, no, actually, Sauk Prairie is going to change in the opposite direction if we don't have more houses and more places to live. We certainly also had, just like you're talking about all morning, the increasing costs of the housing stock that actually already existed. So the people who led the conversations in Sauk Prairie to make the community change its mind about housing are Chamber of Commerce, the school district, and some large employers. Milwaukee Valve is one of the largest employers in Sauk Prairie. Milwaukee Valve makes some massive valves for naval ships, for large buildings, skyscrapers, things like that. They started doing at least 4 round trips every single day to the Wisconsin Dells area where housing was affordable to bring employees into their factory. And the added cost of doing round trips with a bus to bring employees into the factory was something that they were willing to share with the community, with village leaders, with other people who were questioning the need for housing. At some point, Milwaukee Valve has to ask whether or not it's worth having a factory in Sauk Prairie if it has to go bus employees in from a community 25 minutes north. The school district really made this point too, that if we want our programs to continue, if you want all of the advanced placement classes, you want these career programs, you want great sports teams and music programs, we need to make sure that our population stays at least the same, if not going down. But where are you going to sell a home in this community to somebody who has 2 young kids if the housing stock continues, the price goes up and up and up? So we started to win this battle of public perception that yes, we need to have more neighborhoods, we need to have workforce apartments, that's not necessarily a bad word or a bad name. So what proof do I have that it started to work? Well, the school district got to be part of the negotiation for this, but in the next 3 weeks, we get to break ground on a 40-acre new neighborhood that's just south of the hospital in the town. It's a mix of workforce apartments, there'll be about 118 workforce apartments, and owner-occupied duplex homes. There are 102 of those, so 61 homes, 112 units about total. There's like another house that's stuck in the middle there. But here's one of the big wins for us, in part because of using TIF district financing and being at the table to negotiate this on behalf of the community. The developers agreed to set the rent rates in the workforce apartments tied to new teacher salaries for the entire life of the TIF district. The first speaker, you get my notes, I use exactly her language. The first speaker of these quick flash talks talked about non-family middle-income housing. That's a teacher that doesn't have a family but I want to come into the community. So first-year teacher, he or she doesn't have a family that is coming with to South Prairie. That income level was exactly in the middle of that data shared earlier. How do I make sure that that person can afford to live in the community? So a 2-bedroom with laundry in units and a garage built underneath is set at exactly the rate of the first-year teacher's salary of 30% to make sure that it's affordable. And we drove that conversation. When you talk about workforce housing, we're not talking about people we don't want to live here. Part of the NIMBYism. We want our teachers to live here. I want them to stay here. I want them to hopefully someday have kids that will be in our school district. But I'm going to push on that question of making sure that the community bought into the fact that we had the need for housing. So there's a picture of one of those apartments that will break ground in a matter of weeks. The map of 5 different buildings, so it's not one mega building that scared people. And then a bunch of almost zero lot line, minimal lot line duplex homes in the rest of the neighborhood that will be owner occupied, and that's one of the duplex homes right there. So just before we started, Senator F was asked a question about TIF district financing. This is one of the ways that we use TIF district financing as a leverage point in South Prairie. It said if you're going to get this money, you have to make sure the rent rates are affordable for a brand new teacher in town so that we can attract these families to stay in town. That's my quick speech. Thank you.
Any questions? Are there any questions for Jeff?
Who's involved? It's HC Properties. This is their largest development that they've done. They've done most of their work in Monarchy, Verona, that section of the state.
Could you talk about co-living at their project?
Yes. Childcare, there's a lot within the development that's set aside for senior apartments and for a future childcare center. At the same time, I'd be glad to talk about this with you during the break. Our school district is also opening a childcare center in September. The building will be owned by the municipality of Prairie du Sac in a public park, so we don't have rent. So we have additional revenue that we can use to pay a living wage and provide health insurance. As school district employees for the workers in the child care center, there will be 168 kids from birth to 4K eligibility. But we knew that if we were really bringing in this many families into an apartment and duplex home area, where child care is already a stress on the family, that we couldn't add housing without also adding child care. And in the TIF district, basically the village said, we don't need you to put money aside for another park. This is actually, the development was right next to a park. So don't put money in for a park, instead put land aside that you would give to a child care provider when we find one.
Any other last questions? Okay, another round of applause, please.